Hey there, folks. It's Jimmy Stewart here, hoping this is finding you all doing well as we close out 2020 and head into 2021. Now, today's video is going to be number 8 of the classic vintage guitar series here on the channel. And this particular guitar kind of fits into those categories. It's almost vintage. It's only 20 years old, so it's not quite. But it is a classic because it is one of the first mass-produced electric guitars by the folks at Fender. And I'm talking about this guy right here. This is a 2000 American Swamp Ash Telly. Now, it's a Swamp Ash body. That's the only difference in this particular guitar than what you could buy during 2000. I had a Swamp Ash made, and this is a maple Swamp Ash. Again, it's a 2000. It's an American Telly, standard Telly stuff, and I've done just a couple of small things to this particular guitar. One is I took out the Tex-Mex pickups that this was standard with and put in a set of EMG noiseless Tex-Mex pickups, and these are active. In other words, there is a battery that we installed here in this cavity to make these active pickups. It's a great guitar. Pretty heavy. Swamp Ash is pretty heavy with a maple neck. And what we're going to do today is have a couple of listens to some tones. Obviously the intro and the outro. And we'll give you a close-up look of the 2000 American Telly Swamp Ash maple necked guitar. Let's have a look. Now here's the up close and personal on the American Standard Swamp Ash Telly. You can see it's got the EMGs in there. Beautiful maple neck with medium jumbo frets, and again, that's a maple neck with no additional fretboard. The actual frets are right into that maple neck. Your classic Telly headstock, bone nut. It's a 25.5 scale length and a 9.5 radius on the neck, on that maple neck. It's got a 3-part beveled pickguard there, Swamp Ash body, your standard Telly single volume, single tone with a 3-way switch, obviously through the body stringing. It's a gorgeous guitar. Your bolt-on maple neck. You can see it's there in Corona, California from the Fender shop. Your standard skunk stripe going up the neck. Great. As always, Fender tuners on there, and you can see on the serial that this is a 2000, early 2000. Just a wonderful guitar, and as you can see, I'm going to look at the fretting on this. As you can see, those frets are just marked right into the neck. There is no glued-on fretboard. Solid maple. Again, a 3-ply pickguard with 8 bolts, 8 screws. The older ones originally only had 5 holding that pickguard on. And a close look at the case that it came with back then. It's your standard molded case. And of course, I keep all the case candy and all that good stuff. There's the original package, the original case candy stuff from back then. Just great guitars, these Fender Telecasters, and everyone needs a Fender Telecaster as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm sure many of you already know the story of Leo Fender and how Fender came about, but for the Telecaster, it's kind of interesting is that around 1950, Leo made what was called at that time the Esquire, which was the same body style, but it had a single pickup down here in the bridge, and it had the slanted bridge mounted pickup just like this one here, but it was only the single pickup, and it was the Esquire, and they didn't make very many of them, around 50 or so in 1950. In fact, a lot of those got returned for some issues in production, and one of the biggest issues in production for the Esquire, the original, was that they didn't use a truss rod in the neck, so a lot of those necks got warped and people ended up sending those guitars back. So Leo discontinued them, only made them for a short while, and came out with what he then called the Broadkaster. Now the Broadkaster was basically the exact same guitar with the dual pickups in it as we know a Telecaster today. Another small problem there in 1950s, when he released the Broadkaster, Gretch had already trade named Broadkaster, although they spelled it with a K instead of a C, Broadkaster with a K instead of Broadkaster with a C. But nonetheless, a lawsuit ensued, and Leo had to stop using the name. Initially, what they did for around the first 9 months of 1950 was, instead of putting the Broadkaster name on there, they simply left that decal off, and it just said Fender. Now, today people call those the no-casters. They didn't have a name. So, very collectible. There's not many of those. They only produced maybe 500 or so of those back in 1950. So those particular guitars are actually very sought after by collectors. The no-caster, as they call them. There was no stock name. It just said Fender. So, being sued by Gretch, they decided to come up with a different name, and they came up with the Telecaster. So around 1951, the Telecaster was born as we know it today. Now the cool things about the Telecaster is the way they were made, obviously. They didn't have a set neck, they have a bolt-on neck. Although it's not really a bolt-on, these are actually screws. It's screwed into the wooden maple neck. They're not bolts, but we call them bolt-ons, everybody has. And of course, the bridge slanted pickup mounted into the plate of the bridge. This was considered what they called the old ashtray bridge, and they used to come with a cover on here. And the reason people call them the ashtray is because everybody would take that cover off, because you couldn't pick down here and get those nice twangy sounds with that cover on. So everybody removed them, and they ended up using them as ashtrays. There you got the name for the ashtray bridge. This particular model has got the individual 6 saddles. The original Telecaster models were like the Firefly that I have there. They were 3 bridge saddles, 2 strings per saddle on the old ashtray type bridge. This has got the individual 6 saddles on it. The other thing that they did back then was the maple necks were much easier to produce because it's a one-piece neck. There's no scarf joints or anything on here, and there is no gluing of a fretboard on this particular guitar. This is a solid maple neck. Some of the things that they've changed, and of course now throughout the years Fender has made many different variations of the Telecaster, but the basic concept of the guitar has remained the same since 1950 when they first introduced it. So let's give you just a couple of tones of this particular guitar. Again, this has the active EMGs in it, not the original Tex-Mex pickups, but they sound very much the same. The reason I changed them was I was recording at the time. The Tex-Mex pickups were just a little too noisy going into the board in the studio, so I took them out and put in the EMG noiseless. These are actives. I'm in the middle position here. Now up in the neck pickup. And in the bridge. The 2000 Swamp Ash American Tilly. Very, very nice guitar. Heavy guitar, but it is what it is. I like it. Again, it's mostly a studio guitar. I don't take it out very often. Does the job quite nicely. So that's going to do it for today, folks. We hope you enjoyed episode number 8 of the Classic Vintage Guitar series here on the channel. It's the last video we're going to have a chance to do before next year. So until then, it's Jimmy Stewart saying, take care of yourselves. Please stay healthy. Please stay safe. And we'll talk to you again soon next year. Bye-bye for now, folks.